Good morning, evening, or night. Wherever you are, welcome to WHAM Today. Take a deep breath, clear your mind, and let's drift through the whispers of today's world, one quiet thought at a time. As we wrap up Wednesday, 25th June 2025, let's see what stories are unfolding around us. China's Premier Li Qiang is actively championing economic growth and international cooperation, urging the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, AIIB, to increase support for the Belt and Road Initiative. He also stressed the need to separate trade from political and security matters at the World Economic Forum's annual conference in Tianjin, where he pledged that China would become a consumption powerhouse. Capital expenditure on AI in China is projected to reach between 600 billion and 700 billion yuan this year, with Chinese drug innovators increasingly using AI tools to reduce discovery costs. The country is also encouraging private enterprises to participate in infrastructure projects. SF Holding, China's largest courier, plans to raise over $5.90 billion to support international logistics and R&D. Boss Japan, a major online recruitment platform, issued 30 million new shares in Hong Kong, seeking to raise up to HK$2, 26 billion. Enjoy Foods plans a Hong Kong listing to raise up to $336.30 million, while ride-hail app Kakao debuted in Hong Kong with $236 million. Xiaomi is preparing to launch its first SUV, and Brewed, the world's largest EV maker, has added 2 new car-carrying ships to expand its export capabilities. China opened its first offshore gold vault and contracts in Hong Kong, and China stocks closed at a 6-month high. Plug-in hybrid electric car exports to Europe have surged, rising by 600% year-on-year in May. But Goldman Sachs forecasts that China's property downturn could extend into 27. Tencent-owned Supercell will launch titles like Clash Royale as WeChat mini-games. Finally, Defense Minister Rajnath Singh traveled to China for SCO defense talks, focusing on anti-terrorism efforts. Turning to Taiwan, the country has blacklisted Huawei and SMIC from receiving chip technology. China vowed forceful measures in retaliation, denouncing the action as despicable. The U.S. stock market is showing mixed performance near record highs. The Nasdaq is boosted by Nvidia shares and crypto. The S&P 500 is approaching a record. The Dow Jones showed mixed performance. Hopes for a Federal Reserve rate cut are influencing market activity. Investors are awaiting comments from Jerome Powell. The SEC and U.S. exchanges are discussing relaxing regulations for public companies. Crude oil prices have increased due to a U.S. pressure campaign and declining as stockpiles. The U.S. oil market is tightening due to increased gasoline demand. The U.S. is allowing ethane cargoes to sail to China. Erratic US trade policy is creating uncertainty for us, investors. The United States is transitioning from the verge of big trade deals to not having any in view. President Trump will retain control of the golden share in the U.S. steel buyout by Nippon Steel. Nestle will remove artificial colors from all food and beverages sold in the United States by mid-26. Kroger will close approximately 60 U.S. grocery stores to enhance efficiency. Loxley is expanding its market presence in the United States. President Trump stated that the U.S. and Iran would hold talks the following week. Turning to Iran, crude oil prices are rising due to President Trump's pressure and declining U.S. stockpiles. President Trump stated that the U.S. and Iran would hold talks the following week. The Kremlin has stated that Russia deeply regrets and condemns the U.S. strikes on Iran. Russia stated that it is too early to assess the extent of US bomb damage to Iranian nuclear facilities. Oil prices are rising, while European markets are opening lower following the strikes on Iran. In China, uncertainties from the United States tariff blitz are disrupting global supply chains. Investors are delaying decisions, according to entrepreneurs and policymakers at the Summer Davos Forum in Tianjin, China. The United States is allowing ethane cargoes to sail to China after inventories soared. Over in Hong Kong, the Hong Kong Monetary Authority, HKMA, intervened in financial markets. It sold US $1.20 billion worth of US dollars to buy Hong Kong currency at HK $7.85 per US dollar to defend the local dollar's peg. This is the first intervention since 2023. Meanwhile, in Russia, the Kremlin has stated that Russia deeply regrets and condemns the US strikes on Iran. Russia stated that it is too early to assess the extent of US bomb damage to Iranian nuclear facilities. A Belarusian man was arrested for allegedly throwing an infant to the ground at Moscow airport, causing severe injuries. Finally, the South African rand is dropping due to Middle East tensions following US bombing of Iranian sites, which is affecting markets. India's stock markets initially showed positive momentum driven by eased geopolitical concerns and anticipation surrounding the US tariff deadline, though later tempered by global market trends. The Sensex closed 700 points higher, and the Nifty gained 200 points, boosted by reliance and its sectors following an Israel-Iran ceasefire. HDFC Bank shares reached a record high due to strong market sentiment and the HDB Financial IPO. Western Carriers, India, secured a yacht 558 crore order from Jindal Stainless Limited, while Texmaco Rail gained a yacht 535.6 crore contract from Camalco SA, Cameroon, for freight wagons. Indian bonds remained stable after incorporating the RBI's liquidity plan. Larsen and Toubro, L&T, listed India's first ESG bonds, worth out of 500 crore on the NSE. And the NSE is offering $160 to settle with regulators to advance its IPO. The market regulator is strengthening oversight on trading members' compliance. The NSE CEO emphasized India's potential for growth in services and experience sectors. Disruption concerns around the Strait of Hormuz benefited Indian shipbuilders and carriers. Indian banks have invested approximately $29 billion in the coal sector since 2016. Tata Group Chairman Chandrasekaran has assumed leadership of Air India. Sumit Bagadia suggested India, Onward Technologies, Parag Milk Foods, and Arvind Fashions as potential breakout stock. Asian markets displayed a mixed performance, initially boosted by Japanese stocks and focus on the Federal Reserve and tariffs before pausing. Nvidia's record close, driven by AI optimism, fueled gains in Asian chip stocks. JP Morgan analysts highlight AI as a crucial driver for Asian tech stocks. Southeast Asian small businesses are increasingly adopting AI for competitiveness. In Hong Kong, FWD Group launched its IPO, offering 91.34 million shares at HK $38 each, valuing the insurer at HK $48.30 billion, US $6 billion. Iran. Following a ceasefire with Israel, a former CIA chief under President Trump asserted that Iran's nuclear program was severely damaged, a claim at odds with current intelligence assessments. It was also revealed that Trump previously authorized U.S. strikes on Iranian nuclear facilities as part of its support for Israel before the ceasefire was implemented. Discussions are underway regarding the distinctions between the Stuxnet cyber attack and potential U.S. airstrikes on Iran's nuclear capabilities, alongside Iran's difficulties in preventing the use of Musk's Starlink satellites within its territory. The FTSE 100 index declined in response to Iran's threat to close the Strait of Hormuz trade route, impacting global commerce. Russia. Russia no longer needs Iran's support for its war in Ukraine, having amassed a stockpile of 13,000 missiles. The recent conflict between Iran and Israel has sparked questions about Russia's influence in the Middle East, with analysts suggesting Russia is unlikely to intervene to support Iran directly. In Moscow, a Belarusian man was arrested for attempted murder after allegedly throwing an Iranian refugee toddler to the ground at the airport. Global markets responded to the Iran-Israel ceasefire with varied reaction. Wall Street saw a surge, while the FTSE experienced a decline, partly driven by expectations of interest rate cuts. European shares showed weakness, as investors considered the broader implications of the ceasefire. Initial market rallies were fueled by optimism, with crude oil prices climbing as investors evaluated the ceasefire's impact and the demand outlook. Sensex futures edged lower as investors assessed the situation. Most Gulf markets registered gains following the Iran-Israel truce. S&P 500, Dow Jones, and Nasdaq stock market futures were initially volatile after reports of strikes on Iranian nuclear sites. Global shares are showing mixed performance as markets respond to the fragile ceasefire between Israel and Iran, with the conflict and a destructive tariff war raising recession concerns. Following the ceasefire, gold prices are decreasing as safe haven demand diminishes. U.S. crude oil prices are increasing, following an initial sell-off after Iran showed restraint in targeting regional crude supplies and President Trump worked to broker a truce between Jerusalem and Tehran. Oil prices are now lower than before Israel's initial attack on Iran, suggesting the earlier price spike was temporary. The tech sector is pushing the Nasdaq 100 to record highs, while Dow, S&P 500, and Nasdaq futures are wavering. The S&P 500 is tracking oil prices upward. Turning to Europe, the Milan Stock Exchange is seeing gains pared back as caution returns, with banks weighing down the market. In London, stocks remain flat, though Babcock shares are surging. In Israel, stocks are rising as traders anticipate the U.S. will expedite the conflict's resolution. Meanwhile, the Nifty 50 index in India has key support zones at 25,000 and 25,100, and bullish sentiment may continue above these levels, contingent on developments in the Israel-Iran situation. Stocks including SPI, Nestle India, and Adani Enterprises are expected to be closely watched. Japan's stock market saw the Nikkei index reach a 4-month peak, buoyed by rising tech stock values amid a perceived easing of tensions in the Middle East. Chip-related shares followed the upward trend of their U.S. counterparts. Despite this, foreign investors shifted to net sellers of Japanese stocks, ending a 12-week buying streak. Japan's rice crisis appears to be easing, with prices stabilizing, supplies returning to stores, and costs falling below Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba's target of under 4,000 yen for a 5-kilogram bag. Despite inflation lingering above target for more than 3 years, the Bank of Japan's OJ future strategy remains unclear, according to HSBC's chief Asia economist, Frederick Neumann. A heat wave is also gripping Japan, potentially lasting weeks and increasing energy demand. The United States, specifically Alaska's Nikiski plant, played a pivotal role in the global LN market, acting as the sole U.S. export facility and exclusively supplying Japan until 2017. Europe experienced fluctuating market conditions driven by geopolitical and economic undercurrents. Initial market dips were triggered by investor reactions to the Iran-Israel ceasefire announcement. Soon after, news of a Middle East truce buoyed market sentiment, leading to a partial recovery in European shares. Tesla's European car sales continued their downward trend, registering a 27.9% drop in May, marking the fifth consecutive month of decline. This sales slump is blamed on growing competition from Chinese electric vehicle manufacturers and perceived brand damage resulting from CEO Elon Musk's controversial statements and political affiliations. Babcock shares surged by 13% after the CEO declared a new era for defense, signaling a strategic shift within the company. Turning to Canada, the nation is currently re-evaluating its F-35 fighter jet acquisition and has initiated discussions with potential European suppliers as part of the assessment process. United Kingdom. The UK is procuring nuclear-capable F-35 fighter jets, reinforcing its alliance with the United States. UKs have seen volatility as investors react to corporate earnings reports and speculate about future interest rate adjustment. KIC's recent assessment at the 32nd London Financial Meeting indicates the UK stock market is undervalued. Expanding its financial services, digital challenger Zopa has launched its Biscuit current account, entering the UK current account market. A UK industrial chains business has broadened its reach by acquiring Italian competitor Ognabene for €10 million. The FTA 100 struggles mirror the Nasdaq's performance, reflecting wider market anxieties. Trade talks between the UK and Switzerland will continue with Round 8 scheduled for autumn 25. In health news, UK authorities are investigating a possible link between obesity drugs and pancreatic damage. Ukraine-Russia. NATO intelligence suggests that Russia possesses the resources to maintain its war efforts in Ukraine until 27. Ukraine and Europe have jointly established a war tribunal that notably excludes Putin. A high-ranking Russian official has described the EU as a direct threat, particularly regarding Ukraine's potential EU membership. Amid escalating conflict, President Zelenskiy is appealing for increased Western aid following recent Russian attacks that caused at least 26 civilian deaths. Moscow's wartime casualties have reached a grim milestone, while Kyiv sustained injuries to 5 people from a significant drone attack. Analysis of debris confirms Russia's deployment of new Iranian manufactured technology in its drone attacks against Ukraine. NYSE. The New York Stock Exchange, NYSE, is collaborating with Money 2020 at its upcoming European event. Saudi Arabia is actively strengthening its financial regulatory framework through collaboration between the Saudi Arabian Capital Market Authority and the SFC. The kingdom's fintech sector is booming, with the prepaid card and digital wallet market expected to hit $12.88 billion by 2029. Saudi Arabia also successfully concluded its June 2025 Sukuk program issuance at $627.80 million. Al Rajhi Bank's technology arm is preparing another attempt to list on the Saudi Stock Exchange. Industrial partnerships are also progressing, exemplified by MP Materials' collaboration with Madden to create a comprehensive rare earth supply chain. In contrast, SLB anticipates a weaker Q2 performance, citing reduced activity in Saudi Arabia and Latin America. Socially, the evolving role of women in Saudi Arabia requires a nuanced understanding of its cultural context. The TFD Watchlist Forum provided a platform for Filipino leaders in Saudi Arabia to discuss financial and career strategies. Cristiano Ronaldo's Saudi club, Al Nassr, is currently searching for a new coach after Pioli's departure, who is likely heading back to Fiorentina. South Africa's rand is holding steady following an Israel-Iran ceasefire, as markets now turn their attention to upcoming economic data. In the business world, Takealot is working to diversify its revenue streams in anticipation of heightened competition from Amazon. Think Markets has recently launched the ZAR 40 Index, an initiative designed to broaden trading access to South African stocks, and introduced ZAR 40 for South African traders. Despite these developments, the South African stock market has seen a $3.70 billion reduction due to foreign investor withdrawal. Finance professionals are currently being awarded their Chartered Global Management Accountant (CZEA) designation. There is active debate surrounding the efficacy of Black economic empowerment (B) initiatives in combating poverty. The South Africa Diabetes, Devices and Therapeutics market remains active. Johannesburg is preparing to host the 7th Africa Youth in Tourism Innovation Summit, with the food show South Africa also scheduled at the Gallagher Convention Center in Johannesburg. Spain faced trade threats from President Trump, who declared the country would pay twice as much due to its failure to meet NATO's defense spending commitment. Australia's economic outlook is uncertain, potentially leading to a rate cut, amid concerns about falling Australian shares influenced by rising oil prices. The Australian Competition and Consumer Commission, ACC, is suing Australian Gas for alleged greenwashing practices. The National Stock Exchange, NSX, is being considered as a potential alternative to London's AIM. A former Reserve Bank of Australia, RBA, Deputy Governor has been appointed to a panel investigating the Australian Securities Exchange, ASX. Computershare experienced an error with PointsBet, raising concerns about vote accuracy. Investors are exploring AS ETFs for passive income, growth, and diversification. Australia is also competing with Turkey to host the COP31 climate talks. Turning to Canada, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's government is facing scrutiny over its handling of foreign interference allegations. The Canadian Security Intelligence Service, CS, warned Trudeau about China's attempts to influence Canadian politics as early as January 2020. 2. Public Safety Minister Marco Mendicino testified before a parliamentary committee defending the government's actions. The opposition parties are calling for a public inquiry into the matter. The controversy is fueling debate about the integrity of Canada's democratic processes and its relationship with China. Canada is also grappling with rising inflation, prompting discussions about potential policy responses from the Bank of Canada. In the United States, the Federal Reserve is closely monitoring inflation data as it considers future interest rate hikes. The U.S. economy is showing signs of resilience, but concerns remain about a potential recession. President Joe Biden is facing political challenges as he navigates a divided Congress. The U.S. government is also grappling with issues such as immigration reform and gun control. Tensions with China continue to be a major foreign policy concern, with ongoing disputes over trade, technology, and human rights. The U.S. is also providing significant military and financial aid to Ukraine as it defends itself against Russian aggression. A bipartisan group of senators is working on legislation to address artificial intelligence. North Korea is set to open a new tourist spot on its eastern coast soon, hinting at a possible shift in how it approaches tourism, though the exact date for when foreign tourism will fully restart is still uncertain. Moving to Russia, North Korea intends to send a large group of workers to the Kursk region to help with rebuilding efforts there. South Korea's economic outlook is bleak, according to President Lee, leading the central bank to intervene with monetary policy adjustments. HKMA is growing its presence in the country, with expanded water monitoring initiatives. Meanwhile, Miniso has launched a flagship store in Seoul, highlighted by the release of a special stitch blind box collection. Further solidifying its regional reach, Acclaim has announced a greenfield expansion into South Korea. Turning to Mongolia, Menk Partners will collaborate with Mongolia HDTV to deliver marketing strategies tailored for Korean and international brands entering the Mongolian marketplace. Germany's economic landscape presents a complex picture of both challenges and opportunities. Export industries are currently navigating headwinds, primarily due to concerns surrounding potential tariffs imposed by the United States. On a more positive note, the ZIF, German Bicycle Industry Association, indicates signs of a revitalized domestic bicycle market, suggesting pockets of economic strength. Financial markets reflect some anxiety, as evidenced by a recent dip in the DAX index. The planned Frankfurt initial public offering, IPO, of Autodoc, a German car parts vendor, has been delayed, adding to the cautious sentiment. Meanwhile, Germany is facing increasing pressure, along with other EU nations, to repatriate its gold reserves, which are currently held in vaults within the United States. A new chapter in space exploration began as 4 astronauts, including Shubhanshu Shukla of India, embarked on an Axiom mission to the International Space Station. India, along with Hungary and Poland, saw their first astronauts travel to space via a private company, highlighting growing international collaboration in commercial space ventures, with each nation's government sponsoring its respective astronaut. Switzerland is contemplating a standardized nationwide penalty for littering offenses. Simultaneously, the nation is exploring avenues for collaboration with the European Union concerning defense matters. Adding to international affairs, Switzerland and the EU have formalized a declaration addressing transitional protocols. On the domestic front, Switzerland maintains comparatively robust rates of child immunization. United Arab Emirates is seeing a property battle between Dubai and Abu Dhabi for Chinese luxury property buyers. Abu Dhabi is increasingly favored because it offers greater value for money. This competition mirrors the broader trends in business, finance, and policy within the Arab world. Brazil's Congress recently dealt a blow to President Lula by rejecting a key tax decree. Concurrently, environmental considerations are spurring technological advancements within Brazil's agricultural technology industry. In matters of international law, Brazil has affirmed that it will not prevent the arrest of Russian President Vladimir Putin based on the International Criminal Court's (ICC) warrant. As a result, Putin is expected to participate in the upcoming BRICS summit virtually, according to a Kremlin official. Hong Kong continues to lead as the most expensive city globally for home purchases, even after a 20% price decrease over 5 years, reports the Deutsche Bank Research Institute. Singapore's stock market is showing positive signs, with the Straits Times Index increasing by 0.6%, reflecting wider regional market gains. Malaysia's technology industry anticipates a substantial increase in capital investment in 2026, promising growth and innovation. Transitioning to the Middle East, Qatar's sovereign wealth fund, KIA, has initiated a $200 million fund in partnership with Fiera Capital, aiming to strengthen the nation's financial markets through strategic equity investment. Paragon Developments. An Egyptian firm is expanding its footprint by establishing its first regional office in Saudi Arabia, signaling growth in the region's construction sector. Somalia has inaugurated its first national stock exchange, a significant step towards stimulating economic growth and attracting investment. In Europe, former Italian Prime Minister Renzi has called on European leaders to acknowledge the complexities of their relationship with the United States, citing concerns raised by former President Trump about the EU's ability to contribute to resolving the Israel-Iran conflict. Russia has voiced its expectation for the rule of law to be upheld in Armenia following reports of a foiled coup attempt, highlighting regional tensions and the importance of stability. Across to Africa, Zimbabwe and South Africa are witnessing a surge in construction activity, which is fueling growth for PVC, a key provider of construction materials. Finally, at the international level, the White House is facing scrutiny for what is perceived as preferential treatment towards Pakistan's elite, potentially influencing international relations and raising questions about diplomatic strategies. And that's a wrap for today's news, because even headlines need a nap. Stay curious, stay kind, and let the noise fade as you find your quiet. Take care, stay awesome, and I'll see you next time on WHAM Today.